Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Rea Parashar. I work in the Norwegian Fintech Cluster Finance Innovation. I'm here today with Hans Christian Bjørne from the factory.
Hello, everyone.
We're here on behalf of the Norwegian Fintech Alliance, which has started the Nordic Fintech Trend Series together with PA Consulting. And today we're looking into Norway and have invited a few Norwegian guest speakers that will take us a little bit into the Norwegian ecosystem and give us an update about what's been happening in the latest months. But first, we've invited the Nordic Fintech Hubs, which is part of the program as well, where we've invited Thomas, the CEO of Copenhagen Fintech, to give a little look into the Danish fintech ecosystem. So Thomas, I think we'll just start off with you and look forward to hearing what's been happening in Denmark.
Thank you so much, Rea, and hello everyone. I can see there's a few familiar names from the last sessions here, so I'll skip the big presentation of Copenhagen Fintech and move directly, more or less directly, into a status on the ecosystem. So let's hope the tech works out here. You can all see my screen, hopefully. Good. All right. So I'll start off by giving you a bit of status on what's happening on the investment side in the Danish ecosystem, because there's been quite some development since we saw each other last time. So during the summer holidays, while we were taking off some time off and enjoying our holidays, FinTech never sleeps. We had a lot of founders actually raising money. So as you can see from this graph, 2021 year to date has actually been a record year for fintech in Denmark. Now, by being by far the most funded tech vertical in Denmark, we were before, but no doubt now there's no doubt. And a lot of money have been flowing into to Danish fintech or Danish founded fintech companies. So more than 6 billion Danish kroners are now year to date invested in fintech. So those record numbers, I will just go a little bit through what happened here during the summer holidays. And I'm not sure I'm doing this in the right order. So if anyone knows the right order, excuse me. But Pleo, they came out with big news. Pleo, the expense management card or solution, came out with big news of raising 150 million and became a unicorn. So as you can see here, that was out in the beginning of July. Very interesting to see how they're going to scale their solutions. They're already in the process of scaling it, so in a lot of different European countries, but also really exciting to see where the vision and ambition takes them with this kind of money. Luna, a short time after, actually came out also with a new name, a new unicorn stamp. So they took a giant leap in rolling out, as it says here, their digital first banking in the Nordics. Being in most of the Nordic countries right now, I'm not entirely sure if they're in Finland. So my esteemed colleague from Finland can probably answer that. But at least in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, they're present right now. And now also a unicorn with their 210 million Series D raise. Also another interesting, and it was hard to keep track actually, because one of our alumni, Chainalysis, Michael Grønager, an experienced founder, second-time founder, that was his third round in 7 months, raising 100 million. So I think he got the stamp of being a fourth-time unicorn. So pretty impressive of Chainalysis. And if any of you are interested in the crypto economy and decentralized finance, this is definitely one of the companies that are leading and which you should be following. Some pretty interesting reports they publish around the space. And then another one interesting case also, public. It was a little bit before the summer holidays. So Actually, the Danish co-founder, Jannik Malling, he went directly to the US and started Public, one of the biggest competitors to Robinhood that just IPO'd in the US. So their investment platform, public.com, also became a unicorn. And what's the interesting case here is actually that they were just out saying they were looking for talents and in the Nordics, and they were hiring in it's not in the tens, it's actually in the hundreds of developers, and they're building their tech team out of Copenhagen, Denmark, and their CTO is actually also Danish. So they're looking to hire a lot of developers from the Nordics and building their tech team, as I mentioned, outside of US. Pretty interesting case also. And then, last but not least, here in the beginning of August, there was also an acquisition. So one of the grand old companies in decentralized finance and crypto, Coinify, actually got acquired by Voyager Digital for 84 million. So a lot of other news, but this was some of the biggest that hit the Danish market in the few months since we saw each other last time. Again, I'm just gonna try to say some of the trends that we are looking at here. I'm just gonna walk them through briefly because we talked about them in some of the previous sessions also. What we are seeing moving in Denmark is these 4 trends, and then something that is, I think, it's a very much a strong Nordic theme. Embedded finance, so different solutions being embedded in other industries and other solutions, other business models. Disrupting wealth, definitely something where we can see here also from some of the previous cases that I just went through, how we manage our wealth. That is definitely something that where we can see more and more platforms and solutions coming out. Incumbent reinvention, always there. Digital transformation of the established industry and solutions that tap into that theme. And then something I will talk a little bit about later, also the whole area of helping SMEs. Again, 97 or 98% of European businesses are SMEs. So this is a huge area, not only in Denmark, but also beyond. And very interesting for fintech solutions to participate in that trend. And then, of course, the Nordics being one of the most sustainable regions, many of these solutions being embedded or applied are from coming with a huge focus on sustainability in general. So the whole SME digitalization space, I think a very interesting case to observe here also, given that the Nordics is definitely when it comes to the digital infrastructure is leading. When it comes to embedded finance, I think it's also a really interesting case. But this is Ageas. So Ageas raised $73 million for its accountancy marketplace and the bookkeeping system that they also, the cloud accounting bookkeeping system that they also run. Then they just bought another fintech here in Denmark, Salary, which is doing payroll systems, another area of fintech that hasn't been disrupted really, but we increasingly see an uptake on with different solutions. So payroll systems, which is a pretty interesting case. What they also communicated, they wanted to start their own SME, their own bank focusing on the SME. So if you have the data from your accountancy marketplace, your bookkeeping platform, your salary data and the payroll system, and then build a bank on top of that, that's going to be really interesting to see where they can take that solution. So we are following that very closely. Last but not least, I can see here I have a couple of minutes left. And these things that I just mentioned here, some of the trends, we will also be taking a deep dive in the middle of September, where we actually also have the next trend seminar, where I think we focus on Finland. But mid-September, we will have the Copenhagen Fintech Week. It's back, not unfortunately physically like it was in 2019, still virtual, 15 tracks, focusing on the themes that I've just went through. And some of the trends here spread out over the year. I'll just stop sharing my screen here and show you a little bit for the last 1.5 minutes. So this is where you can see what you can sign up for. This is the Copenhagen Fintech Week homepage. And if you click on the program 2021, we have some of the dates for the different sessions. And mid-September, we have the 13th, 14th, and 15th. So we will open up with an opening discussion that focuses on where this space is going. We'll have a huge research symposium running where we will focus on sustainability and ethical application of technology and so on and so forth. It's updated now also with speakers and time. We're going to be focusing on how we rethink insurance, a session on that. On the 14th, SME digitalization that we talked about, how the wealth management is being disrupted. We'll have awards and how the incumbents are reinventing themselves, programmable money, etc. And last but not least, the 15th gonna be with a focus on green finance. We'll have the Nordic trend seminar on Finland, sustainable investments, talk about how finance is moving into being open and embedded. And then we'll wrap it up. So very excited to be able to be here. Thank you for the time, and I hope to see you for the next trend seminar and of course for the Copenhagen Fintech Week. And I'm hitting 9 minutes and 57 seconds. And it's my huge pleasure to give the virtual mic to my esteemed colleague from Iceland, looking very sharp today. Gunnlaugur, take it away.
Thank you, Thomas. This is going to be very short. It's been a rather calm summer here, but yeah, we have some deals that are on the way and will be announced in September. So some there's one deal that's interesting. That's Rapid, a fintech company based in Israel, but also Iceland. They previously purchased an Icelandic acquirer / fintech company and have now purchased another one called Valitor that was owned by Arion Bank. So they're focusing a lot of their business on Iceland, a lot of their operations. They have around 900 payment solutions around the world, and so they're focusing a lot of the control of that here. And yeah, the purchase price of this company was $100 million. Other than that, there's a bit of consolidation. Some of by Kvika Bank, a solution in payments called Öyr that young people use, another solution called Netgiro that people use to fund well, for consumer finance and others. So yeah, things are coming back to life, it seems, after COVID and after the summer. We all of a sudden have lots of traffic coming to work, which we haven't had for over a year. And so yes, this was very short from me, so I'm just going to give the mic over to Anders Norlin in Sweden.
Super, Gulli. Thank you so much. Welcome to Stockholm. Still working from home. I have carpenters in my basement, so if there's any drilling going on, then you know why. I will go through quickly some of the happenings in Sweden. Some recap on what we do at Fintech for those of you that haven't heard anything from our side previously. Hang on a second. Should be okay. The Fintech Hub in Sweden, I think we're closing up to 200 members. Pretty small team still. See ourselves as the midst of the ecosystem. I think that's the same as we do, all of us in the Nordics. We initiated this more informal meetings with the key players of the ecosystem since early this year. as the other ones, we're defining in different categories. I agree with Thomas on what is trending. Maybe the accounting tech is one area that's not been seen so much attention to before, but I think that will increase quite dramatically. Besides, of course, payment sector with what's happening with Klarna, that is a massive impact, of course, in Sweden. If we start on the high level, so to speak, on the e-krona project, I think this is a slide I showed last time. It's now more in a testing phase for the e-krona to be implemented somewhere. They predict 2027, could be earlier, but it's one of the Swedish bank, Handelsbanken, is doing the practical testing, how it works with the banking systems and also offline capacities. So it will be interesting to see that. I think next year there will be some outcome on that. The Bank of International Settlements, I think I mentioned last time, they opened up their innovation hub here in Stockholm in June. Still no people. They're recruiting a CEO. It's going to be staffed by primarily tech people from the Nordic central banks. The office space is ready at the co-working space here in Stockholm, Epicenter. So in a couple of months, I would believe the first people will enter space. The focus areas within the Bank of International Settlements are 6 or 7, but in Sweden, probably, it's going to be the central bank, digital currencies and payments, the big area, and the second one will be probably within the green finance area. This is also along with what is happening with the central bank. It's the payment investigation directly under the Swedish Parliament. It was launched end of last year, but they're now in full speed since March. They conducted interviews with all the key players on the payment market. And the objective is to define or clarify the role of the state, the government within payments. So there will be until next year before they hand over the report to the government. Also interesting to highlight its research project with some of the 6 largest universities in Sweden. It's called the Sustainable Finance Lab. They have a quite big funding from the Swedish Innovation Agency over 5 years. They're now starting up their the activities. They've been staffed up until summer. So we expect to be some outcome, but it's more on the research side of the financial markets connected to sustainability, of course. Funding, I'm losing track of all the fundings, to be honest. More or less every day there's some of the fintechs that have a funding, early stage or to the massive series. This is from J12 Ventures in Stockholm. They mapped in tech how the distribution is early stage to late stage and who are the most active investors. And I think it's the same for the Nordics. Fintech is actually the biggest part of all the tech investments. On a European level, I think it's already past the aggregated volume 2021 is by far passing 2020 or even 2019. If that will continue, probably, as at what we pick up. This I showed last time, June 1st, about the trend, hopefully, that instead of being acquired, fintechs, they are acquiring themselves. And I took the example of Tink, and then it took about 3 weeks, and then we have this notice out of the blue. It's been rumors around that, of course, with Visa's trying to acquire Plaid, and now it's Tink. It's going to be a couple of months of the antitrust investigation, of course. So it will be interesting to follow. I was listening to the founder, Daniel, just 2 months before that, and he had then explained the route, how they want to be global on their own, passing the mental barrier led by, I think, Klarna, Spotify, those companies. You can go on your own all the way to be a global company. But now, if you get 1.8 billion euros on the table, I think it's difficult to resist. And also, as they stipulate in the announcement, it's going to be treated as an independent organization. I really hope it will be like that, so it's not stop of growth of Tink in Stockholm. I really hope so. You can never pass anything updates in Sweden without mentioning Klarna. Over the summer, I think they acquired 3 companies, one in San Francisco, one in UK, and one in Germany. Very much connected to e-commerce, so they're taking a serious, big global grip on that. Also, I think it's a chase with, is it Square that acquired Afterpay in Australia? I think it's going to be a battle of the global position, Klarna compared to Square / Afterpay. They're almost doubling their transaction volume compared to last year. Okay, the losses is also increasing, but it's the dramatic growth, especially in the UK and the US. On trends in general, I just read this report from Barclays. I think it's really good. They foresee a consolidation wave. I think that will be increasing. So, a small note was actually yesterday or 2 days ago, one small player within neobanks, PFC, was acquired by Svea Economy. That's one of the niche banks in Sweden. They've been very strong in business-to-business banking. So it's a move for them to be more active in consumer banking, and I think they are addressing the young generations. So I foresee, or we foresee, there will be more like this. There've been some discussion about PFC, the position and the capacity to be on their own. So it's in line with this, let's say, consolidation wave. On the agenda, a lot on Stockholm Green Fintech. It's probably the most attended or area at the moment, if you talk to people within the banking sector and also investor sector. So we have a lot of activities connected to those companies in Europe, UK, and even also into US later this year. So by that, I'm done. I didn't keep track of time, but Janne, I hope you're prepared to take over and have the Finnish route. Thank you so much, and I see you in September.
Thank you very much, Anders. Yeah, I am prepared and ready to go. So yeah, my name is Janne Salminen. I'm the CEO of Fintech Farm Helsinki. We're a fintech hub like the others here today. We're a private company, and we've been doing this for quite many years already, especially in the focusing on the Finnish market, but then also happy to be part of this Nordic collaboration and beyond. So yeah, I've been introducing Fintech Farm more closely in the previous events, so I think we can now go straight to the point. So today I will be talking about what's going on in terms of funding in the fintech field. Then I will introduce a few new challenger banks we have got to Finland, and then something about the core banking troubles the banks are currently having, and then showing you our new Helsinki Fintech Guide. So yeah, like I mentioned before, last year was pretty terrible funding-wise. The Finnish fintechs raised only 12 million euros, which was really low compared to 2019 when it was almost 150 million euros. But now last winter we got funding back on track, so we have seen a funding round pretty much every month since last autumn or last winter. So already 8 rounds this year, 43 million euros in total. So the latest rounds are RX Markets. That's a factoring financing platform, kind of pan-European. They raised just 8.8 million euros last month. Before that, we had Tesseract Investments. It's really interesting company. It's crypto asset platform where you can basically get loan and use the cryptos as a collateral, or then you can get interest on your crypto portfolio. So they raised a massive 21 million euros in June. Then we had a bunch of smaller rounds. So Roy is it's kind of a challenger investment platform like Robinhood, for instance. They just raised an angel round of a little bit less than 400,000 euros in June. Then Front AI, that's a controversial AI. It can be used in any industry, but they have quite many financial industry customers, such as the pension company Elo and also Nets, for instance. So they raised a $500,000 round, and then Redkick, which is an insurtech company from Eastern Finland, also had an angel round. Then Enfuse, which is a payment platform focusing primarily on card as a service solutions. So they got a massive or quite big €7 million round last March. Selma Finance, then again, it's also kind of a challenger investing platform. They're more on the Swiss market currently, but also now going to be focusing on Finland in the coming years. And then Calculate is a SaaS. It's a kind of analytics tool for SaaS companies to calculate their cash flow. So yeah, like you mentioned, I think the accounting tech and similar tools are also a trending thing in Finland. Then if we have a look at the new challenger banks, so basically in Finland we have not seen many neo or challenger banks such as in the other countries. So I could say we have two categories. We have the companies with the fancy apps and smart cards like Lunar or Revolut, and then we have the more financing focused companies such as Collector or Bank Norwegian, but we haven't had those companies really in Finland until now. So Ferratum, which is a European-wide fintech focusing on financing solutions, it's been listed on the Frankfurt stock already years ago. So they have now changed slightly their strategy. They announced that they will change or are changing their name to Multitude, and Multitude will consist of 3 chapters, which is Ferratum, still doing consumer lending, then Capital Box, which is business lending, primarily focused on SME customers, and then Sweep Bank, which is their new neobank. So they kind of soft launched this before the summer, but I assume there will be bigger announcements coming up this autumn. Then another very interesting case is the Fellow Bank case, where we have Fellow Finance, which is a peer-to-peer lending platform. It's stock listed in Finland, quite significant player in the Finnish market, but also in Sweden, Poland, and some other countries. So they're doing both peer-to-peer lending for consumers and businesses. They have had quite much struggle like all the other companies because of the interest rate cap we got a few years ago, and then due to Corona, they actually put even a tighter temporary interest rate cap of 10% for consumer lending. So that's been hitting really the market hard here in Finland. And then the other stakeholder is Evli Bank. So Evli is a traditional wealth management firm for a certain niche market, and they are splitting their businesses into wealth management and then their banking services. So now they are merging the bank with Fellow Finance, and it's going under the working name Fellow Bank right now, and they should be ready with the transaction early next year. So then we have a new kind of challenger bank. And the interesting case here is obviously that Fellow Finance was a peer-to-peer platform which was supposed to challenge the banks, but now they seem to turn into a bank themselves. So their business model would be probably quite much as with the lending-focused challenger banks we have in the Nordics already. And they already announced that they are launching their new payment card in the last spring, together with a fintech company, Enfuse. So really looking forward on how these companies are developing. Then something about the banks. So currently the banks in Finland are really not very focused on new innovations and fintechs. They are hands full with their core banking transformation systems. This is just one example. So almost 3 years ago in January, three of the Finnish kind of smaller banks announced that they are changing their core banking system to Temenos with the help of Cognizant. And then 2 years later, there was a rumor that they haven't got really any progress, and the Cognizant will quit the projects. And now in June, they officially announced, at least from 2 of the banks, that they are terminating the contract, and they actually announced very positive quarterly results because they are getting a sanction fee from Cognizant. But this really shows how difficult it is for banks to renew their technology, and this is of course an advantage for challenger banks who don't have the legacy systems, but also will show that the banks are currently in Finland focusing more on this basic technology rather than new innovations. And of course, then we know the Nordic case. So they already started in 2015 their transformation program, but they haven't really announced clearly on about when is it going to be ready. And they already have done some significant downwritings on the investments they put into that project. Otherwise, I'm really happy also to announce we launched in the summer the new Helsinki Fintech Guide. So that's our annual industry handbook about the Finnish fintech industry. We have a lot of landscape information there, statistics, numbers, how many companies we have, which categories, how much are they raising, how much are they making money, etc. A lot of insights about how the market is evolving, and then we have a lot of stories. Success stories about fintech companies, but then also insights on how the regulatory environment is going, what are the banks doing, etc. And you can get the Helsinki Fintech Guide for free from our website. So if you're interested in the market, I suggest you download and read it. Otherwise, that was everything from my side today. So remember, if you're interested in the Finnish market, so just visit our website or get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Janne, for the Finnish update. We're moving on to Norway now to take a closer look. And we've invited Stefan Astrusa, who is the head of financial services at Itera. He is also a startup mentor at the factory, and he also leads the open banking group in the Norwegian Fintech cluster for innovation. So I think Stefan will have a lot of great things to say about what's been happening in Norway. So Stefan, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Rea. Please let me know if you don't see the presentation. Yeah, I'm going to take a deep dive into what's happening in the Norwegian market within the fintech space. So on behalf of the Factory and Finance Innovation, if you have any questions after the presentation, please feel free to contact either me or Rea or Hans Christian directly to gain more info. But before I commence digging into the trends, I would recommend some readings from both the Factory and the Finance Innovation. So the Factory has created an in-depth report on how data and modern technologies such as AI and machine learning is being used in combating financial crime and anti-money laundering. Go check out Finance Innovation's website for more information on that report. And also have a read on the Startup Beat second edition from the Factory, which digs into the topic of corporate startup collaboration, and a lot of good tips on do's and don'ts from practical examples from the industry. So 2 readings definitely worth having a look at. So I'll be talking about some trends in the Norwegian fintech space, and there's definitely a lot of things happening here in Norway. It's also difficult to narrow down and scope into some few trends, but in this short period, I will try to talk about 5 key areas, ranging from culture, regtech to open banking, but also wealth and insurtech actually. So there's a lot of things happening besides this. Some things has been mentioned, for example, from the Danish market. A lot of things happening within the SME space. Definitely many things popping up here in Norway as well. But I won't be focusing that much on that in this walkthrough. But let's start off about the frenemies and the culture aspect. So frenemies as a term, or rather as a mindset or a way of thinking, has definitely been something that the Norwegian, both fintech, but also the incumbent banks and insurance companies has embraced as a term. And basically regarding competitors finding new ways of collaborating together. And there's a lot of examples in recent time that shows how this is being played out. Vipps, Pivo, and MobilePay is definitely one of the major news coming from the Norwegian space during the summer. So joining forces in creating the new Nordic, but also European mobile wallet is definitely a interesting play that we're following closely, and it's very interesting to see that also that the kind of mindset from Norway about collaborating together is being let's say exported beyond the national borders. So as Rune Garborg, CEO of Vipps, points out, it's a global game, not a local one. So it definitely makes sense to join forces on that in that space. Another examples within the competitors finding together is an example from Finance Innovation. Actually, they have been working closely together with Trygg, Frende, Fremtind, and a couple of vendors in sharing data and tools across companies to enhance how they detect insurance fraud. So this is a project that has a potential upside of saving a lot of millions in resources used, but also combating insurance fraud. Should definitely be a nationwide initiative, but also beyond the borders of Norway. And on that regard, the frenemies term should definitely also be something within RegTech and combating more specifically financial crime and money laundering. So I mentioned the report that Finance Innovation had created, where we see that there's a lot of things happening from the bank side, but also from the vendor side. So on this slide, we have in the report, you can read more about the vendor landscape in Norway, and there's a lot of interesting, not only the established players doing a lot of things within, for example, machine learning and taking better use of data in combating financial crime, but you also have startups that are well familiar to both the factor in finance innovation, such as Strice or Enin, which have been developing new solutions and gaining more insights into non-financial data as well in combating financial crime. So there's a lot of new vendors within the startup space that have been gaining a lot of traction in not only the Nordics, not only Norway, but also in the Nordics within the space of RegTech. So definitely a place where the incumbents need a lot of help in combating these large issues, and should also be an area where the companies should become more cooperative in developing new solutions and value propositions. The third area is still a very hot topic, and I would assume that it will be also moving forward. But in regards of PSD2 and open banking, there has been a lot of hype in regards to what the Payment Service Directive should or could mean for the industry. We haven't seen the most ambitious predictions being come into reality, but definitely we're seeing now that we're slowly but surely moving towards more openness within the Norwegian banking industry and taking more action into becoming more compliant to the directive. During I will say perhaps 12, 16 months, there has been a lot of debate on the topic. And thanks to primarily fintech startups from Norway, we have seen a lot of progress within the field. So there's been public debates on industry news media, whereas fintech startups have not only spoken up and openly criticized the banks, the quality of the bank's APIs, or rather the lack thereof, but that they also have taking measurements and got something into the market. For example, Fintech Norway, which is a newly founded non-profit industry organization which working for collaborating together with other startups within the fintech space and keeping in mind the interest of the fintechs. They have launched what they call 33report.eu, which is a service that enables third-party providers to report observations of potential non-compliance from the bank side and gain more insights into what's the problem from the problem that they're experiencing, and being more open to the ecosystem, so that rather than having dialogues in parallel, having a ticket motor that shows it in one place. So I would encourage everyone who's interested in PSD2 or open banking to check out the portal, or contacting Fintech Norway directly and follow them on their LinkedIn page. There's a lot of things happening from that industry organization. And this initiative specifically is not only a Norwegian one, so it should be something that's interesting for Nordic peers, but also in other European countries. So PSD2 and open banking will definitely be something that people will talk about also in the future. But the pace of the innovation is slowly but surely going towards probably not the most ambitious predictions, but we're coming to a space where we see that fintechs could use the bank's APIs to create new services to better for the end consumer. Moving on to the wealth space, there's definitely a lot of things happening within this vertical. Savings and investment has been blowing up during the pandemic period, not only in Norway, but definitely throughout the world. So low interest rates and low spending or possibility to spend has been a key driver in this regard. And one can also claim that cryptocurrency investments more or less have become mainstream for Norwegians, at least. We see that there's a lot of interesting things happening from the fintech and scale-up side within wealth. Mirai X, which is one of the speakers later on today, an alumni from the factory, is definitely worth watching within the crypto space. They recently achieved more than 100,000 users on their platform, which shows that this is an interesting and increasingly more popular field of investments for Norwegians. But there's also many other interesting verticals within savings and investments. There has been a new regulation within the pension scheme here in Norway, which definitely have given providers such as Kron or Duvi more traction in the market, but also in crowdfunding. As opposed to many of our Nordic peers, Norway is lagging in the development within crowdfunding. If you take a look at the volumes at least, but we see that there's a lot of things happening within the crowdfunding space, and many interesting companies are gaining traction within that area as well, and Norwegians are embracing that kind of investment or funding service for small and medium-sized enterprises. So savings and investment would definitely be something that we could expect to have a lot of focus also in the future to come. Another area that's closely related to fintech is within the insurtech space. It's a lot of focus on fintech, obviously, because there's a lot of things happening within that vertical. But if you take a look at the insurance industry and see how specifically how the mobility industry is interconnected or have effect on the insurance industry, there's definitely a lot of things happening within insurtech as well. So more specifically on the car insurance, we see that there's a lot of things popping up. There's an evolving startup scene from the mobility space, which has either a threat or a possibility for the incumbent insurance providers. and many regard the developments in how we as end users either own or subscribe to a car is definitely shaking up how car insurance is being distributed. So from a couple of examples from recent times, Sparebank 1, the bank alliance consisting of 14 savings bank in Norway, recently invested 25 million euros in Flex, the market leader within the cars subscription market, and is definitely putting their money where their mouth is and placing a bet on the mobility space. Gjensidige is also another example which has entered a collaboration with iMove, also a Norwegian startup within mobility, and together with car manufacturers in Sweden launched Schist, which is a car subscription service. So there's definitely a lot of things happening in the insurance space as well. Many thanks also to the evolving startup and scale-up space that gives the insurance providers the possibilities to collaborate with other third parties. That was some key focus areas within the fintech space in Norway, at least. So, as mentioned, if you have any questions to these 5 areas of focus, or any are keen on discussing that anything else on the topics with us, please feel free to contact either me or Rea or Hans Christian directly to have a chat. So yeah, thank you for thanks. Over to you, Rea.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for a great update. We're going to actually go right into the next presentation with Anna Karin Østli, who is the Managing Director of MasterCard Payment Services in Norway, who's going to give us a bit of a corporate perspective on different fintech trends in Norway from MasterCard. So Anna Karin, I hope you're ready.
Thank you very much, Rea. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So my name is Anna Karin Østli. I work for MasterCard Payment Services Norway. We are responsible for operating what's called the account-to-account infrastructure in Norway. And that means that we actually have the pleasure of working in the heart of the financial system. And we are often among the first ones to pick up when behavior and payment flows change. I will share some external trends that we see, what opportunities we think that they can open up for fintechs, and also, since we are a multinational company, what makes Norway special when you look at us from the outside, and why are we so interesting for large multinationals like MasterCard for testing out new ideas? Over the past years, there has been a development going on where traditional borders between what used to be different industries have faded away, and there is an industry convergence going on in actually almost all industries that radically change the competitive landscapes for many businesses today. This is important for us as providers of financial services because it affects how people consume financial services. It also affects how and where payment flows are originated and directed. And like the previous speaker, I personally think that what's going on in the transportation sector is actually one of the most powerful examples of this trend. In the past year, we have seen several large insurance companies here in Norway acquire toll road operators. It might look surprising from the outside, but if you think of it, the reason is that these insurance companies, a lot of their revenue streams are coming from commoditized products. There are low interest, even if it's very exciting for an insurance company, it's low interest for the customers. And that because of that, it's important for them to move closer to their customers and become a more important part of their everyday life. so that they can influence the decisions that actually drive their revenues more than they traditionally have been able to do. And by building car driver-centric ecosystems that aggregate not only toll roads and insurance, but also other roadside services, charging of electrical cars, and so on, they both create services that make life easier for the car driver. They place themselves closer to the car driver, and at a higher, they get a higher mind share in their customers' everyday life. And at the same time, borders between industries who used to be separate sectors are being wiped out, and that also changes the rules for who actually is competing with who. Here in Norway, we as consumers are relatively quick to adopt and drive some of these ecosystems. And when I talk to my international colleagues around in Europe, they find some of the things that we take for granted very fascinating. So an example that we very often talk about is that in my house, I have an app that monitors everything from the doorbell to the heating to the lighting to the alarm in my house, but also in the mountain cabin that we recently bought. Norwegians are adopting this quicker than many other nationalities. We are used to having everything from tax filing to applying for mortgage at the bank very easily accessible digitally in one app, and we expect these type of services to be as easily accessible with a few clicks, and we expect to be able to add new services and to pay just as easily as we do with a lot of other services in society. And for someone who is not Scandinavian, this is really fascinating, and it makes us a very interesting test lab for new things. When these ecosystems emerge, so transportation and smart housing are only two examples, there are many more going on around us, it changes the way that financial services actually need to be set up to integrate with these ecosystems. And we see 5 things happening from our perspective. First of all, we see that many payments that used to be one-off payments, they have turned into subscriptions instead. So for example, I have a subscription of contact lenses. I used to go to the optician every 3rd month. Now I just buy that as a service, and I pay on a regular basis without even thinking about it. The same thing is about to happen in car washing and in other parts of the transportation sector. We also see that the physical and the digital channel are converging in the retail segment. So for example, we can see it in several restaurant chains here in Oslo, where the payment terminal has actually been replaced by an iPad, and on that iPad, the same app as a customer who orders food remotely and pays for it remotely is installed. So it has actually replaced the payment, the traditional way of paying. And that, of course, affects how we as financial service providers need to act. We also see that the presentation of alternatives in these digital interfaces for consumers becomes more dynamic. It becomes more data-driven. And I think that the most fascinating examples are Foodora and Volt and the likes of them, takeaway delivery food services. In the future, I think that we will see more applications where it is a gadget and not a person who initiates the payment. We, for example, know that several of the leading car manufacturers are looking at integrating payments in a way in the software in the car, so that the car actually initiates payments for services along the road. we also see similar things happening in the power and electricity area, and it's very much driven by the real-timeification of meterings, so smart meters in that ecosystem. For us as providers, when financial services in fact actually become data streams that need to integrate into an end-to-end customer journey that is run by some type of software, it means that we need to offer standardized APIs. They need to be and that need to be stable to be relevant in this context. An example of an ecosystem like this that we in Mastercard are working on right now is something we think is really exciting. We work together with a provider, actually a Porsgrunn-based e-health provider called Imatis. Imatis is a pioneer in patient flow software. So briefly, what they do is that they automate everything that a patient would normally go to a hospital counter to do. Very similar to what has happened in the airline industry for passengers actually arriving in Gardermoen, for example, where everything from the check-in to finding your way at the hospital, managing your place in the queue, and managing the notification when it's your turn to go into the doctor is done automatically in an app instead of by meeting a person at the hospital counter. We have worked with Imatis for some years to also integrate the payment for the consultation in this journey. So what actually is accessible now in Stavanger, and it's about, or in the Stavanger area, and it's about to be rolled out also in Helse Sør-Øst, so the largest health region in Norway, is an integration where, based on the national insurance number, the software, Imatis software, makes a call towards the national consent database. If they find the person, or if we, I should say, find that person in the national consent database, then the system automatically sends a request to pay an e-invoice to the internet bank or to the mobile wallet that this patient is a customer in. And this means that the patient doesn't need to worry about the payment at all. And this is very important in this sector because in many cases, the reason that you had to go to the hospital in the first place is a stress factor in itself. And with clever IT, like we have built here together with Imatis, you can remove that stress factor. So I think this is a great example of innovation, cross-industry innovation, actually, that is driven by two Norwegian-based tech companies in partnership. And in addition, it contributes to a greater good because it is improving important services in society. So with these examples, when you look at us, or when others look at us from New York or London or Paris, what is it that sets us apart and makes Norway so interesting for testing out new services? Some things that we take for granted are actually not so natural in other countries. We are a small population. We have a high adoption of digital services. And as one of few countries, actually, we have more SIM cards than we have inhabitants. We have something that is really important. We have a national ID infrastructure. It's in use by 4.2 Norwegians at the latest count. That means virtually everyone above the age of 18. This is really important because if you think of it, what it does is that it makes it really easy to digitize services across the public and private sector in our society. We use it for not only bank services and financial services, but everything from administrating a company register to filing taxes to ordering medicine, for example. And this is a really important enabler for the digitization that we have been driving for many years in Norway. A more soft factor is the fact that our society is built on trust. As Norwegians, we take it for granted, but again, when speaking to colleagues in other countries, we discover that that is not necessarily the case everywhere. In MasterCard, we operate something called the National Consent Register. It's a database where all Norwegians, currently more than 3.3 million people who prefer to receive a digital invoice rather than a paper invoice, if that is available, have registered what's called a pre-consent. For colleagues in other countries, when they hear about this, the question they always ask is that, but how do you as MasterCard get people to register sensitive information in a central register like that? How do you make them trust you? And for us, it's something that is just a natural way of life in a trust-based society, and a really important driver for Norway as a country. And without that culture of trust, we would never have been able to build some of the successes that actually are unique to us in Norway. So the 20-year-old e-factura service that is very efficient and covers almost all society. Vipps, which is the mobile wallet that has the highest adoption per capita in Europe still. So we have a lot to be proud of here up north. Others are looking at us and find us very attractive as a test lab. And I think there is only the sky is the limit for what we can achieve in the future. Thank you, Rea.
Great, thank you so much, Anna-Karin. Thanks a lot. Now we're going over to the academic side, and we've invited Eirik Sjålund Knudsen, who is an associate professor at the Norwegian School of Economics. We've invited him to talk a little bit about the first executive fintech MBA, at least in the Nordics, as far as we know. So Eirik, I hope you're here.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I hope the sound is okay. I'm in a conference hotel, so it's quite a volume of the room I'm in. So in 2018, we were approached at NHH by the NCE Finance Innovation Cluster, and we were asked to we were given a challenge basically, and that challenge was to develop an MBA in fintech. So we had a new rector at that point, and he basically said that we are up for this challenge. We are going to try to develop one of the world's first executive MBAs on the topic of fintech. And then I was asked to chair the development of this program, which we did in close collaboration with members both from the NCE Finance Innovation Cluster and beyond this cluster. And then in the end of 2018, we launched the first cohort of the program. So what is this executive MBA program in fintech, as we usually call it? Well, it's one of 5 specializations on NHH's executive MBA program. So we have 1 specialization in strategy, 1 in management control, 1 in maritime management. Sorry, it's the 4th, and this one in technology and innovation of finance. So to give you a very short brief of what's special about this program here, I would like to start on how we view fintech. Because as all of you know, fintech is a very wide term or concept, and I guess everyone agrees that it's both refers to a lot of things at the same time, and it can also refer to very specific things. So one of the first big decisions we made when developing this program was to decide on how we should define fintech for this program. And the way we did it was that we said that fintech, it's technology-related innovations of finance. So what's so special about this definition? So the first word I would like you to pay notice to is this related. Because one thing that we have realized by talking to a lot of companies, and also based on research we do ourselves at NHH, is that when we see big waves of technological change, it's usually not driven by technology. It's more driven by other changes in the environment. For instance, it could be demographic changes, it could be changes following a recession or an economic crisis, or it could be changes in people's perception on the importance of the environment, for instance. But the point is that technology is utilized to try to solve and address these new problems and opportunities that are created. So that was really important for us to have this in the back of our heads. So we integrate these other big megatrends that are important drivers of the opportunity space that firms are actually going into. The second important thing to note is the word off between innovations and finance, because it was really important for us that this was not an executive MBA program restricted to firms and participants from within the traditional bank and finance sector. So instead, we focus on the financial services, and basically it's innovation of these financial services. So this could be, of course, innovation of the financial service itself, or it could be innovation of the financial service because it's integrated in very different business models than what we have seen from before. So essentially, this means that this is not a program that's only targeted to people within what we traditionally call the banking and finance sector, but it's also relevant for companies outside of this sector that are interested in or are pursuing or curious about how financial services can be utilized or added to utilize and create value for their companies. So to say a bit more about the program, we have a pretty broad approach to fintech because of this definition there, which is the first important point. But related to this, we have a very multidisciplinary take on fintech. So this program has all the components of a classical MBA program, meaning that we cover everything from finance to strategy, innovation economics, leadership, management control, change management, and so forth. But the important thing is, of course, that we try to make everything as relevant as possible for the questions, the problems, and the opportunities that people are actually meeting out there in the real world. And what we realize when talking to businesses and see how they actually approach these kind of challenges, we see that they don't have one particular textbook that they are opening. Instead, they basically draw insights from many different scholarly fields. And that's one of the strengths of this program, is basically that we combine insights from many different fields, and we try to do it in a way that's complementary in the sense that it enables our participants to be better at addressing the challenges they have at hand. In terms of the participants, we have one cohort that finished this spring. The first 2 years were extended a bit because of Corona delays. But what we learned from that first cohort was that this is actually interested for people outside of banking and finance as well, and also very useful. So of course, we had a lot of people from within the traditional banking and finance sector, like insurance, banks, investment banks, and so forth. But we also had many participants outside of this. So we had people from media companies, from more construction side of things. We had from consultancies and so forth. But also on the participants' educational background, we see quite a lot of diversity. So we have people with business degrees, we have a lot of people with technical degrees, people with law degrees, other social science degrees, and so forth. So the point is with this program, and what's a defining character on all the MBA programs at NHH, is that the group is really important, and we try to put together a group that has these complementary backgrounds and skill sets. So for an engineer, this might be the main motivation of going into our program is to learn more on the business side of things and how to connect their technical abilities to broader questions in a firm. But for a leader with a management background, the main motivation might be to understand more on technical issues and how to discuss and understand better what engineers and other people working on the technical side in their companies are, and also to structure everything and translate it into strategic decision. When it comes to the structure of the program, that's perhaps one of the main differences for this program for other programs, is that we have what we call a problem-driven structure. So you won't find either our gatherings or a structure after, like, now we're going to look at strategy, and now we're going to look at finance, and now we're going to look at leadership. Instead, everything is driven by very specific problems or questions, and then we basically put together a program or a combination of insights from different scholarly fields to address this in the best possible way. And from the first run through of the program, we have learned that this is really valuable. It's makes everything very, very relevant. And it's also very close to how people attack problems out in the real world. So in practice, we often, of course, or business people, of course, have to take insights from marketing or behavioral economics and law and also strategy to address a certain problem. And that's basically what we do in this program here. You will meet top professors from NHH and also outside of NHH, and we also have loaded the program with very interesting and relevant guests from real life that we bring into the teaching situation and use as case companies and also discussion partners. And the last thing that you will see down here is that part of the program is also 2 visits at top international business schools, where the first cohort went to London Business School and also to NUS in Singapore. So to sum this up, it's basically that the context here is fintech, innovation within financial services. And then we basically restructure all the traditional building blocks of an MBA program to address these sets of questions in the best possible way. So how does this work in practice? So we have 4 physical gatherings every semester, usually 3-day gatherings. And in between these gatherings, the participants work on real projects in groups where they draw on the insights from one particular semester. So one semester, for instance, they got the assignment of developing a platform where financial services was one of the sides. And we actually ended up having sketches and platforms or sketches of several platforms that startups have realized later on, and one of the groups actually ended up building a company out of this group work. In addition, we will have from next cohort starting in the fall 2022, then we will also have a set of online gatherings, mainly focusing on methodological questions, which is really useful of doing online. So this is designed to do on the beside of in addition to your normal job, and it's not something people have to quit or have a pause on their jobs to actually take this program. So who is this for? So I could say, based on the first cohort, that it is from people from finance, but it's also relevant for people not from finance. It is relevant for people working in large firms and corporations. But we also see that it's very relevant for people working in smaller firms. And we also see, based on the experience on the first cohort, that it's really very relevant for people with business or other social science degrees. But also it's the same with people with tech degrees. So just to show you one of our alumni, this is Alf Gunnar Andersen, CEO and founder of Horde. He actually developed this company on the side of being a participant in the first cohort of NHH's MBA program. So he was actually admitted to this company when he was working in his previous employer and developed this on the side. And if anyone is interested in how it is to work and build a today very successful fintech startup and doing an MBA at the same time, I'm sure he will be helpful to share his experiences. But it really shows that it's possible. But if you ask him, he will also say that it's really relevant and it's also been important for many of the things that he has done throughout the last 2.5 years. So to end this with a few facts, we have 32 participants, so it's a pretty small group. You follow the same group for the entire program. New from the next cohort is that everything is in Norwegian, so we also open up for non-Norwegian speaking participants. The cost for this 2-year program is 445,000 Norwegian kroners, and the duration of the program is 2 years. It's 90 study points, and we start the next cohort, the second cohort, in the fall of 2022. So that was a small recap of what I would say or think is the first fully integrated MBA specialization that we are aware of, at least on the topic of fintech. And if anyone here is interested to learn a bit more about it, you could either just take the QR code behind me here and take into the information page of NHH, or you can just drop me an email at eiriknudsen@nhh.no. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eirik. This is very exciting. I'm sure that that this MBA will spur a lot of interesting, more fintech coming out of Norway and the Nordic region in the years to come. Next up, I'm very happy to introduce Tuk Huang, who is the founder and CEO of Mirai X, the largest and fastest growing cryptocurrency exchange and investment platform in the Nordic region. Tuk is an alumni also here at the factory. They participated with their startup 2 years ago, and a lot has happened since then, and he is here to talk about the future of decentralized finance. So stage is yours, Tuk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, can you also see my screen?
Yes,
yeah, great. I'm here from Mirai X. Thank you for the introduction, Hans Christian, and thank you to Stefan for the shout out earlier. Just a quick run through what or who we are. We have just newly over 100,000 verified users. That's fully KYC'd, where we use services as Vipps login and BankID. We have over 450 million in euros in traded volume ever since our launch. And we are more than 35 employees right now. We are hiring quite a lot, so it's very fun to see that there's so many that shares our vision and the goal for what we want to achieve. So what's different from us compared to many other competitors is that we are highly focused on localized and tailored products for each market we go into. That's why I mentioned Vipps, which is why it's more or less everybody in Norway uses it. And we are also fully compliant and registered with the financial authority here in Norway, and we work closely with local law enforcement. And many people are asking us this question: why a new cryptocurrency platform? We received it when we started. We still do it, and in the last couple of months and years, we see that it's all all end up in trust. You need to trust the system that you're using, the platform, the services. And for us, we are also our own users. So in order for us to trust something, we have identified that we tend to use the same services as long as we feel some sort of connection to it. Like me, I've had the same bank since I ever got one. So I haven't changed, even though there has been competitor banks. And our approach is we work with the local regulations. So instead of since this is also a new area, we are also able to speak and raise a voice regarding coming regulations, how it would play out and such. And taxation on cryptocurrencies, it's fairly difficult for most people coming from traditional finance, where you, well, at least here in Norway, you basically get everything filled out and sent to the tax authority. This is something we build ourselves, and now we're just waiting for this to be able to ship it to the correct place. And yeah, so we believe that in order to actually enable cryptocurrency into the mainstream, you actually have to work very tight with the local authorities. This is why we see all the countries are beginning to get their own regulations about anti-money laundering and such, which is nice to see, since we were fairly early going this route when everybody else said it's unregulated, you can do whatever you want, but we didn't want to do go that route. Yeah. So the topic of the presentation was about the future of decentralized finance, and that's the opposite of what we're doing. But from what we're seeing, there's a huge opportunity and an area to explore new services, features, and ways how you can do transfer of value on the blockchain. There's more than just Bitcoin, and there's a lot of those who read the media can say that it's about like 15,000-20,000 different cryptocurrencies, but only a handful of them might be useful for something. And the map you're looking is all the names on this map are companies that's younger than 5 years, and especially services. It basically came up the last 12 months. So decentralized finance are really early. It's growing very fast. Just in a year, it went from below $10 billion in value locked into the to various protocols to now to be at 85.7 billion. That's a huge increase in a very short amount of time, even with the price moving so fast. And this is some of the biggest protocols. Why I'm mentioning this is Maker is actually a Danish company. They have built a stablecoin where you use cryptocurrencies as security to issue these stablecoins. So instead you have pegged $1 to another USDC, you actually have Ethereum or Bitcoin backing this stablecoin, where you put like two times the amount you get out as collateral in case the price drops. And these protocols are fairly huge, large. They process a lot of volume, and for traditional, this is decentralized. We are what they call centralized finance. So for us, this is like a whole new market where you can actually go in and explore how things can be done, how things can be used to provide customers better services. This is a slide about some very interesting companies. These companies, I forgot to put make on this one. I'm sorry. But this is also 4 very interesting companies within the blockchain space, come from the Nordics. Axie Infinity is actually a game. Nansen and Dune Analytics and Chainalysis is actually doing analysis on transactions on the blockchain. So these are companies doing a lot of important work too, because they are doing a lot into AML and supporting law enforcement. But to be able to actually be able to use cryptocurrencies and see how this is going to pan out, you can actually see like Diem, Facebook's former pet project as Libra, trying to make a stablecoin. Visa, just a couple of days ago, actually brought their first NFT art, a CryptoPunk. We see in Sweden, they are working on the e-krona. Visa do transaction settlements with USDC, which is a dollar-pegged stablecoin, and China doing their own central bank digital currency over there with the digital yuan, where they can see how it will work out. And there's 2 main things in cryptocurrencies that's going to be very interesting to see here in the European Union. It's markets in crypto assets, MiCA, which is supposedly to be around 2014. And in the US, they are working on a travel rule where if you a customer send cryptocurrencies over a certain amount of value, you have to report it. And this is something they want to export and put it out into other regions such as European Union and Asia. So yeah, I truly believe that this is a space that you should look more into. It's a lot of involvement and a lot of new protocols and services coming up. So it's going to be very interesting to see how regulations is going to be formed and enforced into these types of protocols. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tuk. That was very interesting to see what's going on in the decentralized space up here. So thanks for a very inspiring and then best of luck to you going forward. Next up, we have Ingar Benson, who is the CEO and the founder of The Factory, the Nordic accelerator and VC, investing primarily into early stage fintech startups. Ingar was an entrepreneur pioneering the digital payments here in Norway before starting The Factory to help other startups and fintechs to succeed. He's on the board of several fintech startups and is here today to share some insights on the fintech investments here in Norway. So the word is yours, Ingar.
Thank you, Hans-Christian, for a great introduction. I would say, Hans-Christian, that we are co-founders of this company. So to be honest, it's been a long, funny ride so far. But we're not here to talk much about The Factory, although I would like to share just one slide in the beginning about us. And I'm glad to be able to be here with all of you to share what we could call the investor perspective from the Norwegian region. And one of the reasons I'm happy to do that is because throughout the last, let's say, 5-6 years, we've been able and fortunate enough to invest in 46 different companies within the fintech, proptech, and within that space, which has given us a lot of interesting opportunities. And as you mentioned, we've been involved in different kind of startups on the board of directors, including the previous, as a disclaimer, the previous company that presented, the MiraX. I'm on the board of that company. So it's been a lot of companies joining us through our accelerator programs, and we, as you can see, this is the result of all the investments we've done so far. But what I'm supposed to talk about today is a bit more the fintech trends within the investor perspective. And to be honest, if we go back to 2016, I would like just to show you what it looked like back then in terms of the Norwegian fintech scene. Back then, we had the CDO of SpareBank 1 at that time, Kristoffer Hernes. He made the overview, and hopefully some of you can recognize some of these companies and actors within this map. And it has been a fantastic development since. We have been able to produce what we call the Norwegian fintech map over the last 5 years. We also do the same for retail, PropTech, retail and PropTech. And moving ahead into 2021, the map looks like this. An increase in number of fintech startups, which has just been immense within all fields. And I remember in the beginning when we had great discussions with Copenhagen Fintech to look at the same chart in terms of the different kind of areas. And we were sitting there and saying, okay, so we don't have any companies to put it within this field and no within this field. But now, as you can see, the whole business of being in fintech in Norway is just booming. It's a lot of things going on. But what I would like to mention is some of the trends that we see from our side as investors within this field. There's been great thoughts from both Anne Karin and Stefan and Tuk and about this already in this discussion, in this seminar. But what we are looking at is more or less 6 different fields, which we see that the trend is moving. First of all, as been mentioned before, wealth management. Many tools, many opportunities and apps within this field. And people have started to adapt into these kind of solutions, start using them. And we can see that the opportunity to invest in these kind of solutions are increasing day by day. Next up is, of course, digital lending. Also, we have companies within this sector from in our portfolio, and SMB banking the same. You know, these new kind of solutions going into disrupt existing banking solutions and giving up new opportunities that you didn't have 5 years ago. And a large area of movement in these times are we can see within the area of PropTech. We did a program back here at the factory, a pure PropTech program back in 2019. Invested at that time in 6 different PropTechs, and we've seen an increase in number of these kind of companies over the last years that has just been super exciting. And also within, let's call it the corporate innovation area, and the interest from corporates to work with startups within this field and invest in within this field of PropTech is increasing day by day. And of course, we can't talk about fintech investments and so on without mentioning payments and digital banking. You all know about VIPs, and you heard of all these kind of stories about what's going on up here in the cold north. And things are moving in that direction. And we can see that large banks are changing their business models. They're working day by day to go into more digital mindset and so on. And then 2 more areas, and that is sustainability and SDGs. You know, the companies that need to that will meet the social development goals, the UN's goals to and for their business. And within the field of fintech, actually, back in the days, we made up a word for this. We call it Finpact, didn't we, Christian? And it was an area where you could use fintech to do something good. And we've seen that this is still moving, and we can see a clear thought on this, that you use blockchain technology, that you use, for that matter, crypto technology, other types of technology to do good in the world. And talking about crypto, I'm glad that Tuk has been invited to present before I did, because this talking about crypto is just something we should not put aside, but put into the middle of the focus area right now. And I believe that this is something that we should put extra effort into, and as investors within the fintech field, we follow this quite closely. And just let me mention just some cases quickly before I see my time is already starting to run out. But I would just mention that one of our portfolio companies, Norquant, within the field of fintech, they raised through crowdfunding total 28 million over two rounds. And if you go back a couple of years, it would be quite difficult to do this kind of let's call it crowdfunding within the area of this is a factor, what do you call it? This is a more advanced investment company. But they did it, raised a lot of money from many investors. Now I think they have 500-600 different investors and so on. So it's exciting to follow. I would just also like to mention Okida used to be named Finanstipset, new solutions coming up, financial advisory, helping out private people with their loans, mortgage, and so on. Just raised 7 million NOK from private investors up here in Norway. Those kind of things, more difficult 5 years ago. Now we see that the trend is moving in their direction. Next up, Tuk already mentioned about the crypto cases, Mira-X being one of them, but of course Nansen raised 12 million Series A, and Dune had the huge raise as well. What we see here, the trend, and what I would like to mention by talking about these companies, that what we see within this field is that we get more attention from international investors if you compare it to, let's say, 1 or 2 years ago. So we get, for example, now with Unisquare, you get Andresen Horowitz, you have Coinbase Ventures coming in, doing investments into Norwegian companies, which we find super exciting. And not this is in a later stage, so it's quite exciting. And of course, as I mentioned, the field of PropTech, we believe that it's a part of the fintech area due to the very similarity within the technology field. Many things have happened. Wanda raising 20 million. You have Fon raising 20 million, and also Marketeer Technologies. Rumors saying they're going to be listed soon. But this is what they share in their social medias and so on, and they raised 71 million NOK. So there has been movement within all the interested fields of these kind of fintech areas that we are looking into. So just to sum it up, as mentioned, fintech started very small here up in Norway, moving rapidly into being a wide area of different kind of verticals where we find PropTech and InsurTech and so on. The main focus being for the time on sustainability, crypto, PropTech lending, new digital solutions. And also the interesting fact that back in the days when we started out, angel investors being the main investors into the early phase companies, into the startups, now changed into all types of investors, from crowdfunding campaigns to large VCs to family offices looking into very early phase investments and scale up phases, and also getting international interest from, as mentioned, Andresen Horowitz and other international investors looking to the Nordic region and to Norway to invest in the startups. So in short, that was a short intro on, short presentation on how we view the field of investments within the fintech field in Norway. So Hans Christian, Andrea, thank you so much for setting up this seminar, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ingar. And that brings us to the roundup and wrap up of this event. I just want to start by saying thank you so much to all the contributing speakers. And it's so always exciting to hear what's going on in our neighbor countries up here in the Nordic region. And combined, you know, we are seeing a lot of innovation happening in the field of finance and near industries. So I hope you all enjoyed this update. The next country to present this, you know, the next deep dive will be into Finland. We will come back with the date and Eventbrite shortly, and then we will give updates from every country, but also looking deeper into Finland in that next event. Håkon, can you please share the slides that I sent you? Are you able to do that? So just before we let you go, I want to just mention one thing. Next week, exactly 1 week from today, on the 1st of September at 11, same time as this meeting has been, we have a very exciting event coming up on the future of money. And this is, if you take the next slide, you can find the tickets. One back, please. You can find the tickets on the factory.no. events. And for the program, you will be meeting Citi. If you take the next slide, we will have Ronit Goose, the Global Head of Banking, Fintech and Digital Assets from Citi Global Insights, who will be presenting the new Citi GPS report on future of money. We will get MasterCard's perspectives on the future of money and currencies from Holly Jones, the Director of Blockchain and Digital Currencies at MasterCard, along with Paul Graham, Vice President of Customer Innovation Solutions in Europe. And we'll also look into some of the more technical aspects on crypto and blockchain payments presented by Odd Gunnar Stakvik here in MasterCard Norway. And finally, we will also see Tuk Huang, who you met earlier in this seminar, with a slightly different perspective on how they are building a cryptocurrency marketplace. So please be welcome next week. If you have the opportunity, please sign up for this Future of Money event. And with those words, I would just like to say thank you all for this exciting event today. If you want to reach out to Finance Innovation, here's the contact detail to Rea, or if you want to get in touch with the factory about early stage fintech investments, acceleration, or as a corporate partner, we are also helping corporates and fintechs to collaborate. So thank you so much, everybody. That's it from Norway.